You are walking through a quiet forest. Somewhere close, a bird explodes out of the branches before you take one more step. A deer catches your scent, freezes with eyes the size of saucers, and bolts. A squirrel dashes 3 steps, stops, dashes 3 steps, stops, spiraling into a full panic. You didn't do anything, you're just standing there in your boots, minding your business. And your first thought is probably, that's a little dramatic. Look at you, no claws, no fangs, no venom. You get winded climbing 2 flights of stairs. Compared to almost everything sharing this forest with you, you'd lose. So it seems obvious, you shouldn't be the scary one here. That assumption is completely wrong. Right now, on this exact planet, you are one of the most feared living things on Earth. Not feared by rabbits, feared by animals that fear nothing else alive, even apex predators that answer to no one. And once you understand why, you will never look at a spooked squirrel the same way again. Here's something uncomfortable. This fear is not new. It didn't start with guns, it didn't start with farms, it didn't even start with fire. It started hundreds of thousands of years ago. Scientists have a name for it, the landscape of fear. Prey animals don't just react when a predator shows up in front of them. They build their entire lives around the possibility one might be nearby. Where they sleep, where they drink, when they move, all of it calculated around staying alive. And for a very long time, your ancestors were part of that calculation. Early humans were persistent hunters. We weren't the fastest, we didn't need to be. We just kept walking for hours in the heat until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. If you were a gazelle and saw a strange, upright shape jogging toward you at a steady pace, that was one of the most horrifying sights imaginable. So animals learned, not one at a time, generation after generation. The ones who ignored a human-shaped silhouette got eaten. The ones who ran survived and passed that fear on to their young. Repeat that for thousands of generations, and the fear stops being a lesson. It becomes a survival algorithm written straight into the DNA. In 2016, researchers in Canada tested something strange. They didn't play the sound of lions roaring or wolves howling. They played wild animals a recording of ordinary human voices, casual conversation, the kind of thing you'd hear waiting at a bus stop. The results were not subtle. Mountain lions fled at more than twice the rate they fled from other predators. Bobcats, deer, skunks, possums, all of them ran harder and faster from a human voice than from any other threat tested. Even animals with no natural enemies still panicked at the sound of you talking. Picture that, an apex predator, an animal that kills deer for breakfast, sprinting away from the sound of small talk. Why? Because even apex predators remember. We hunted them too, we pushed them out of their own territory. We killed them when they got too close to what we valued. Over time, even the top of the food chain learned one simple rule: human sound equals danger. Researchers gave humans a title for this: the super predator, feared more by more species than any other predator on the planet. Not because we're the strongest, because we're the least predictable. And in the animal kingdom, unpredictable is the most terrifying word there is. Here's why. Most predators follow a pattern. A wolf hunts at dawn and dusk. A crocodile waits near the water. A hawk works open fields for rodents. Prey animals evolve to read those patterns because knowing the pattern is what keeps you alive. A deer that knows where the wolves hunt can simply avoid that ground. But you don't have a pattern. You hunt in daylight and in darkness, alone and in groups. You use fire, traps, blades, guns, even machines that fly. You go after animals you eat and animals you don't. Animals that are dangerous and animals that are completely harmless. From an animal's point of view, there is no formula for you. You are a variable their brain cannot solve. And when a threat can't be solved, the only safe response left is to avoid it, always, completely. Biologists call this predator recognition, and most predators slot neatly into a category: big cat, bird of prey, canine. You don't fit any of them. You smell wrong, you move wrong, you make strange sounds, and sometimes you spend 20 minutes calmly feeding pigeons in a park. You break the algorithm, and a broken algorithm is deeply unsettling to a wild brain. But wait, not every animal runs from you. You've seen pigeons in a city square that would rather get stepped on than move. Raccoons that stare you dead in the eyes while going through your trash. Seagulls that steal food right out of your hand without breaking eye contact. So what's different about them? It's called habituation, and it's one of the most important ideas in animal behavior. When an animal is exposed to something over and over and nothing bad ever happens, the fear response quietly fades. The brain essentially decides this keeps showing up and nothing bad happens. I'm done wasting energy being scared of it. City pigeons have lived alongside humans so long that fear was basically switched off generations ago. There's no survival benefit to fleeing someone who throws you bread every single day. Crows take it even further. Crows recognize individual human faces. Studies show they remember specific people who wronged them and hold the grudge for years. They'll recruit other crows to harass that person. They'll teach their own chicks which humans to avoid. Crows haven't just lost their fear of you. They're quietly keeping files on you. Now here's the piece of evidence that changes everything. On islands where humans had simply never been, something strange happens. The fear is not there at all. The Galapagos Islands are the most famous case. When Darwin arrived in the 1830s, he was baffled. He wrote in his own journal about birds that didn't fly away when he sat down beside them, about pushing iguanas into the sea and watching them calmly swim right back and sit beside him again. Giant tortoises, blue-footed boobies, none of them ran, none of them cared that he was there. The same thing happens in parts of Antarctica. Penguins there show almost zero fear of humans. They'll walk straight up to researchers and try to steal equipment out of curiosity. And in protected marine reserves where fishing has been banned for decades, fish stop fleeing divers. In the very next unprotected stretch of water, fish from the same species scatter on sight. The conclusion is stark. Fear of you is not a factory setting. It's installed one bad experience at a time. And when the threat disappears, the fear can dissolve in just a few generations. Which means this was never really about you personally. It's about what you do. This fear isn't just a quirky animal habit, it reshapes entire landscapes. When wolves returned to Yellowstone in 1995, something unexpected happened. The deer population didn't just shrink, it changed how it behaved. Deer stopped grazing in open valleys, they avoided riverbanks. And because the deer stopped overgrazing, the plants came back. Rivers began changing course because the eroding banks finally had roots holding them together again. Trees grew tall enough to shelter birds again. Fish returned to healthier streams. All from fear alone, not from wolves killing deer, from deer being afraid of wolves. Now apply that exact force to you. Wherever humans show up consistently, the same fear effect switches on. Animals shift their feeding grounds. They avoid certain areas at certain hours. A 2018 study tracked animals on 6 continents and found a huge, quiet shift. Countless species were becoming more nocturnal. Not because their habitat vanished, simply because you were around during the day. You are rewriting the sleep schedule of wildlife across the entire planet just by existing nearby. Now for the part nobody wants to hear. You might also be terrifying because of how you smell. Even without deodorant, soap, or anything synthetic, plain human body odor is a loud, unmistakable signal in the wild. Predator urine is used by wildlife managers as a deterrent because scent reads as a direct threat. Researchers left scent strips soaked in human sweat near wildlife cameras, and animal activity dropped by almost exactly the same amount as when they used strips soaked in mountain lion urine. Sit with that, you simply existing smell to a deer about as terrifying as a mountain lion. So if animals are this scared of you, why do some still attack? Almost never out of aggression, almost always out of desperation. It usually comes down to one of 3 things. The animal is cornered with no way out. The animal is a mother protecting her young. Or the animal has been pushed into your space by shrinking habitat and is already at its limit. Bears are a good example. Given any real chance, a bear will simply leave. But as human development eats into bear habitat, that chance keeps shrinking. Less room, less food, more forced contact. Corner a stressed animal with nowhere left to go, and it reacts exactly like you would. Polar bears are the real exception. They evolved with almost no predators of their own and no reason to ever learn to fear something upright and two-legged. They never got the memo. For almost every other species on Earth, an attack on you is a last resort, not a hunt. The clearest proof of all this comes from first contact. Sailors reaching remote islands describe birds that had never seen a human before walking straight up to them. The dodo is the most famous case, a bird so fearless of people that hunting it took almost no effort at all. It would simply walk toward the hunters. They weren't foolish, they just had never been taught to be afraid. That's the world before humans became this overwhelming, not a world without danger, just a world where the danger didn't walk upright. Here's the uncomfortable part. The fear animals have of you isn't a mistake, it's an accurate read of the situation. Humans have driven hundreds of species extinct, hunted others to collapse, and reshaped more than half the natural land on Earth. Statistically, the animals that fear you are making the correct call. But here's the twist, because they flee and hide so well, we rarely see the real scale of what we've done. Nature looks quiet and empty, and we mistake that silence for nature doing just fine. The fear even works against the animals in another way. The most traumatized populations are the hardest to study, hardest to protect, hardest to help. But here's where this actually turns hopeful, because the same rule cuts both ways. Fear like this was never a fixed setting. It's a program written by experience. And a program that was learned can be unlearned. Mountain guerrilla groups in Rwanda and Uganda once fled the moment a ranger appeared. After years of calm, consistent, non-threatening contact, some of those same groups now tolerate researchers sitting quietly nearby. Not because the guerrillas forgot danger exists, because they were finally given enough good data to update their model. These specific people in this specific place are safe every single time. Even crows update their files, stop threatening one, and eventually it stops flagging you as a threat at all. In areas where hunting stops and humans behave consistently, wildlife slowly comes back out into the daylight. The hypervigilance relaxes. The landscape of fear can genuinely be dismantled. It just takes humans being reliably, provably not a threat, over and over. So no, you don't have claws or fangs or venom. You never needed them. You are already the most feared, most unpredictable creature this planet has ever produced. That trembling squirrel on your lawn isn't being dramatic. It's running a survival program refined across hundreds of thousands of years, and it has no way of knowing you were only after a granola bar. But the same intelligence that made you this frightening is also the only thing on Earth capable of choosing to be gentle on purpose. Every place where humans have proven consistently that they're safe, the fear quietly disappears, and the animals simply live in the open again. The landscape of fear was never permanent. It's still being written, one calm encounter at a time, and the next line is up to you.